Okay, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And Commissioner Freeman, will you lead us in the pledge?
Place your hand on your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could we please have the roll call?
Commissioner Freeman. Here. Commissioner Parvin.
Here.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Here.
Commissioner Richards. Here. I'm sorry, alternate Commissioner Richards. Here. Commissioner Ross.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Waters.
Here.
Commissioner Zaragoza.
Here.
Okay, we're all here.
Alternate Commissioner Vil de la Pena. Present. And Chair Parks.
Yes. Next, we'll go on to agenda review. Are there any requested changes to the agenda as it stands? Not seeing any. We'll go then to our commission presentations and announcements. Do we have any of those? Not seeing any. So we'll go ahead to public comments. Any of that? No. Okay. Then let's get on to the meeting, and we have an agenda item for consent items. That would be 7 and 8, the minutes and the budget. Do we have any staff presentation or votes?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any objections to the motion? Any abstentions? Then we'll go ahead and deem those to be approved and move on to our first hearing, municipal service reviews for Ventura County cities. Good morning.
The first item, agenda item number 9, this is the municipal service reviews for the cities of Camarillo, Fillmore, Moore Park, Ojai, Oxnard, Ventura, Santa Paula, Simi Valley, and Thousand Oaks. First, to provide some background, LAFCo is required to determine, or was required to determine, a sphere of influence for each city and special district on or before January 1st, 2008, and every 5 years thereafter. A sphere of influence is defined as the probable physical boundary and service area of a local agency as determined by the Commission. LAFCo is required to conduct a municipal service review known as an MSR prior to or in conjunction with sphere of influence updates. And although only 2 cities will be recommended for sphere of influence updates, staff determined that new MSRs should be prepared for all the cities to reflect an improved economy, since the last ones were prepared in 2012, and to include a discussion of transit services. No MSR was prepared for the city of Port Hueneme, as the city is surrounded on 3 sides by the city of Oxnard and the Pacific Ocean to the south. The only opportunity for growth of the city is into the unincorporated community of Silver Strand, which already receives services from the Channel Islands Beach Community Services District. The draft MSRs were reviewed by staff from all the cities, and all the data within those MSRs was determined to be factually correct. Municipal service reviews involve these 7 determinations. The reports that are prepared, that are in your packets, include a discussion of the services provided by each of the cities, as well as each of the recommended determinations. Those determinations include the growth and population projections, location and characteristics of any disadvantaged unincorporated communities, the present and planned capacity of public facilities and adequacy of public services, the financial ability of the agencies to provide services, status of and opportunities for shared facilities, accountability for community service needs, and any other matter as determined by the Commission. Now we'll just give a brief summary of the municipal service review for each of the cities. The city of Camarillo had a 2016 population of nearly 70,000 within a city area of almost 20 square miles. The services that are provided within the city are mainly provided by contract with providers as well as districts, and summarized here. And as far as issue areas go, we identified that there is a reliance on the general fund to support the city's lighting and landscape maintenance district, and the city may wish to consider looking at alternative funding mechanisms to address that rather than relying on the general fund as much. The city of Fillmore had a 2016 population of about 15,500 and a city size of 3.23 square miles. The services are provided by the city, or about half of the services are provided by the city, as well as other services provided by contract with other providers. Issue areas that we identified for the city of Fillmore included wastewater. There are deficiencies within the city's wastewater collection system, including infiltration during wet water conditions, which overburdens the collection system as well as the treatment facility. And also the recreation subject is the reliance on the general fund subsidy to support the Parks and Recreation Department as well as the community pool. These were both issues that were identified in the last MSR as well. The city is currently working to address that and find funding to address both of these issues. The city of Moore Park had a 2016 population of over 36,000 within a 12.5 square mile area. Services provided within the city are mainly provided by contract as well as special districts. Issues within the city of Moore Park are limited to the city lighting and landscaping. And again, as with the city of Camarillo, there is reliance on the general fund and, in this case, gas tax reserves to support the city's lighting and landscaping maintenance district. And again, LAFCo staff had recommended that the city look into other alternatives for funding for that rather than that reliance. The city of Ojai has had a 2016 population of about 7,500 within a city area of about 4.5 square miles. The city provides some services, also receives services by contract as well as special district. And issue areas that we identified here were reliance on the general fund and gas tax for support of the city's street maintenance activities. And our recommendation was similar to the others where we recommended that the city look into other funding mechanisms to reduce that reliance on the general fund and gas tax reserves. The city of Oxnard had a 2016 population of almost 207,000 within a city of 27 square miles. The city provides almost all of the services directly. And issues that we identified within the city of Oxnard included that there are insufficient revenues for maintenance of city facilities such as streets and alleys and drainage. And wastewater, there are capacity deficiencies in the collection system. In fact, much of the condition of the city's collection system is not known at this time. And there's also overall deterioration of the wastewater treatment plant. And much of the plant has neared or exceeded its useful life. It has documented deterioration, corrosion, poor treatment efficiency, and operator safety hazards. So the City Council approved an increase in sewer rates of 35% in 2016, and that was challenged by city voters through Measure M in November of 2016. That legal case is still resolved, and therefore it's unclear at this time if the city can adequately support wastewater collection and treatment systems. As far as water goes, the 2015 Urban Water Management Plan identified that the 2015 water demand within the city service area totaled 26,028 acre-feet per year, and that exceeded retail water supplies at that time. And the volume of the city's water supply is not known. It was not clear based on the Urban Water Management Plan and consultation with city staff. So we're recommending that be addressed, that be clarified so that we have a better understanding of the city's water supplies. In order to meet the projected 2040 water demand, the city will need to implement projects to provide a reliable, redundant, and sustainable water supply. And that is also according to the Urban Water Management Plan. And those projects could include capital improvements to wells or expansion of the advanced water purification facility for water recycling. The city of Ventura had a 2016 population of over 109,000 within a city area of over 22 square miles. The city provides most of its services directly. Issues that were identified for the city of Ventura included deterioration of streets. The funding sources beyond the recently passed Measure O tax funding will be necessary in order to make those improvements and maintenance of city streets. Wastewater was also an issue. The collection system is experiencing capacity deficiencies. Those are expected to continue in both the near term and in the long term. There are root intrusions and insufficient flow velocities for the collection system currently. The treatment facility capacity is also not anticipated to be able to handle the future flows, and the feasibility of expansion of the facility is going to require further analysis. Water. Demands from existing and approved development will exceed available supply in 2018 during drought conditions. That's according to the city's 2017 Comprehensive Water Resources Report. The 2015 Urban Water Management Plan stated that demands from 2020 through 2030 will exceed supplies in the case of multiple dry years, and that's with or without planned additional water resources. The city is currently looking to pursue additional water resources to diversify its water portfolio. The feasibility of realizing those additional sources is unknown, and that would be an example connection to the State Water Project and also the potable reuse program that the city is looking into. The city of Santa Paula had a 2016 population of almost 31,000 within a 5.5 square mile area. The city provides the majority of its services directly. Issues identified for the city of Santa Paula were wastewater. There are deficiencies in the city's wastewater collection system. It is in poor condition and overcapacity. That is being looked at through the city's capital improvement plan, and so there are plans to make improvements in that area. Also, as far as future development north of the city has not mapped the land uses, infrastructure, or road system for the Adams Canyon expansion area and Fagan Canyon expansion areas that are to the north of the city, and those are contemplated for development under the city's general plan. And right now it is unclear whether development in these areas could be financially feasible due to the extent of the development potential and the cost to extend, operate, and maintain infrastructure and facilities within those expansion areas. The city of Simi Valley had a 2016 population of 127,000 within a 42 square mile area. The city provides some services and also contracts for other services, and also has special districts that provide some services. An issue area that was identified for the city was streets and roads. There's road repair work that's necessary. No funding identified for $160 million worth of necessary improvements. The city of Thousand Oaks had a 2016 population of over 132,000 within a city of 55.5 square miles. The city provides some services and also contracts for others, and there were no issues that were identified for the city of Thousand Oaks. Public transit, that was an item that we included it's identical for each of the cities. Public transit was addressed in all the MSRs based on the idea that a more coordinated regional perspective on public transit will result in improved service for all public transit users. So first, to provide a framework and a summary of the public transit that is provided within the county currently. The cities of Ojai and Simi Valley currently provide direct service. The city of Ojai, their service is limited to the Ojai trolley, and those services are provided by city staff with city-owned equipment. Service by contract is provided by the cities of Camarillo, Moore Park, and Thousand Oaks, as well as the county in its operation of the Cane and Shuttle in Oak Park. The Ventura County Transportation Commission, which is the regional transportation planning agency in the county, provides by contract its own 6 regional routes throughout the county, as well as the Valley Express within the cities of Fillmore and Santa Paula and surrounding areas through a cooperative agreement with those cities and the county. In addition, the Gold Coast Transit District includes the cities of Ojai, Oxnard, Port Hueneme, and Ventura, as well as the unincorporated county area. And the East County Transit Alliance, that was formed by the cities of Camarillo, Moore Park, Simi Valley, and Thousand Oaks in the county, and that was to better coordinate services among each of those agencies. So in our research of this issue, we saw that there were inefficiencies in public transit and limitations on regional coordination. So we saw that there was a Ventura County Regional Transit Study prepared by VCTC in 2012, and it concluded that public transit in Ventura County was disjointed, that there are varying schedules, fares, websites, and bus books, and there's no single source of information for riders who are planning interagency trips. The study stated that making connections is difficult and confusing, and progress toward truly integrated service has been minimal. In addition, it stated that challenges in establishing a coordinated system are difficult due to widely spaced, diverse communities and centers where geographic areas do not share common economic, social, and transportation service values. So it acknowledged that there are challenges in order to regionally coordinate transportation. Transportation Development Act funding, or TDA funding, that consists of state-level support of local transportation. TDA funding comes with certain requirements, such as farebox recovery. That means that other funding sources must comprise a portion of the service cost, and that can be 10 or 20%, depending on whether a jurisdiction is rural, considered to be rural or urban in nature. TDA funding is restricted to public transit purposes for some jurisdictions, and that's regardless of the extent of the need for public transit within those areas. There is limited access to non-TDA funding, and that restricts the ability of transit operators to increase service and still meet farebox recovery requirements. So, in other words, service might not be able to be increased because the TDA funding would be lost if that farebox recovery can't be made. Limitations related to the East County Transit Alliance are that the city of Simi Valley operates its transit system using city staff and equipment, so that's limited to the city of Simi Valley, and the city of Camarillo receives local funding and has a lower qualifying age for senior riders, so that's another challenge in coordinating regionally from the ECTA perspective. Despite all of those challenges, there has been progress toward regional coordination, and that includes the Gold Coast Transit District, which used to be a JPA. It was formed in 2013 and is now a district. As a district, the Gold Coast Transit District has the ability to make improvements and meet public transit needs system-wide. Previously, it was limited to making improvements based on revenue miles within each of the jurisdictions that it served. The East County Transit Alliance was formed in 2013, and it was the result of greater awareness for the need to improve coordination amongst transit systems in the East County. And also there are technological advances, transfer agreements, and fare media, and that has helped to improve trip planning and access to public transit information. And we summarized all of this information and came to the conclusion that there are options for better regional coordination. So these are the three areas that we suggested that be looked at and be considered by the cities in improving regional coordination of public transit. And those areas are that the cities can identify a single agency as the regional transportation authority to oversee and implement the majority of public transit within the county, or to encourage cities not currently members of the Gold Coast Transit District to request to join the Gold Coast Transit District or contract with the district, or to establish a new transit district to complement the Gold Coast Transit District service area. The environmental review for the MSRs. Staff recommends that these actions are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15061B3 of the CEQA guidelines, because it can be seen with certainty that there's no possibility that the activity in question may have a significant effect on the environment. The hearing notice and comments. Notice of the public hearing was not required for the MSRs, but was done anyway, and that was to provide the public and agencies with opportunities to participate in the process. The notice was published in the Ventura County Star, on the LAFCo website, and posted outside the Government Center. The final draft of the MSRs was included in your packet and was posted on the internet last Thursday. And we did receive some comments which were included or which were provided to your commission yesterday. The recommendations to the commission are that the commission accept the MSR for each of the Ventura County cities, Camarillo, Fillmore, Moore Park, Ojai, Oxnard, Santa Paula, Ventura, Simi Valley, and Thousand Oaks, with any modifications made by the commission at the hearing, authorize the executive officer to make any necessary non-substantive changes to the reports, and direct staff to prepare and distribute the final MSRs to all affected local agencies, and also to accept or to adopt a resolution for each of the following cities, the same cities as listed, making findings that the acceptance of the MSR is exempt from CEQA, and making statements of determinations as required under LAFCo law. We do have some representatives from the cities here. I know at least the city of Camarillo and Thousand Oaks have staff here, as well as staff from the Gold Coast Transit District, from County Transportation and Ventura County Transportation Commission. I'm available for questions as well as the agency staff that is here.
Thank you. What a wonderfully comprehensive report. And we've seen these over the years. I think this is the most comprehensive we have seen. Congratulations on that. Thank you. It's kind of like a report card, isn't it, for the cities? Commissioner Freeman, you have a comment?
Were each of these MSRs provided to the city manager's office of each of the respective cities in advance of this hearing?
Yes, and changes were made in accordance with comments that we received. So we worked with the city managers' offices and made changes as necessary.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Thank you for the report. It is really great to see everything from a global point of view for our region. And I want to congratulate Thousand Oaks. I'm very jealous for not having any service issues. We're so aware of it in our city of Oxnard, and I think it's commendable that people do want to serve in these difficult situations. We have a limited amount of resources and tremendous demand and shrinking revenues and lots of challenges. We certainly have it in our city. Our city is going to court. We'll be in court Friday in the building across the street dealing with the challenge to raising wastewater rates. And clearly we have to support our infrastructure, but it's kind of hard to see sometimes when you see just one little piece of your budget. So I appreciate this. It's going to be very useful. Thank you.
Yeah, and indeed, we're seeing, I think, 4 cities that are all having problems with the sewer capacity and infrastructure. Yes, Commissioner Zaragoza.
Yeah, the question I had was on the Oxnard water. What was the concern with Oxnard water? Because we get Mayor Pro Tem water from United, from Callegas, and also we get water from Wells. Right. And also the great program. How does the great program come into
it's coming along. We need more work on it to increase capacity, but it is state of the art. It just needs to be expanded, and hopefully we'll have regional value, not just for Oxnard. And I think that's the message here, that we have regional problems of water, air, traffic, transit, housing, and we have to attack these things, these problems, in a regional way to make it work for everybody. Because our workforce in Oxnard works all over the county and serves the whole county. And just from our perspective, we have to try to work together and make it work for everybody, keep quality of life as good and better.
I think at one time Oxnard was thinking of, and I'm not sure if they're doing it now, is to use the great program water tentatively until the Sacramento approves potable water, to use it for golf courses and mediums and those type of irrigation.
Correct. We are waiting for the state to,
We're not there yet.
no, it's coming because it's a problem all over the state.
Yeah, but thank you, an excellent report. Like the chair says, this is really gives you a good picture of the cities, and what they're doing and the work that needs to be done. Good job, Kai.
The report, as I saw, said that the demand for water in Oxnard exceeds the retail sales, and that it is unknown what the actual demand is. Is that correct?
It was not clear from the urban
That's-
water management plan, and in consultation with the cities, they were not able to clarify what the exact volume was there. So that's why that was stated in there. So that needs to be or should be clarified.
That's why I mentioned it, because we have about 4 or 5 sources for water there in Oxnard, and Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sure that they're working on it.
We're working on it.
And Director Loma, you had a comment? No? Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Alternate Commissioner Richards.
It's working. I'll speak loud enough. Andre, on your recommendation for consideration on the transit issues, what part does new technology play in your recommendations? And does issues like Uber and Lyft and others, does that cut into transit considerations?
That was not considered as part of our review, and as far as the technological advances, that was brought up because using the internet, there's Google Transit, there are some other ways that public transit users can find out information about how to connect from one provider to another provider. And also as far as the transfer agreements and fair media, there are passes that can be used on multiple systems, so that all is being improved and being worked on.
Thank you.
And we have, as I was counting, 10 separate bus systems in the county of Ventura. And you look at just the costs to administer each one of those separately, and how much of a cost savings, if not for the clear fact that it would be a seamless and easier system for the patrons, it would also be less costly for all the cities. Essentially, those are the operators of all, if they work together into one system. But haven't got there yet. It's good to see the East County Transit Alliance at least trying to coordinate the separate systems together. But I do appreciate your comment that one system would work, and Gold Coast is the largest system out there. And from what I've heard, too, there are other systems out there that incorporate both union and non-union contracts within the same system. I think that was one of the barriers to considering Gold Coast. So there is opportunities if there's willingness. And see Executive Director of the VCTC, Darren Kettle, out there, and just that whole effort to try to coordinate requires first collaborating amongst the different cities, not only the electeds, but also the city managers and all to be supportive of that.
Madam Chair, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Commissioner Ross and then Commissioner Zaragoza.
Again, I want to thank staff for the comprehensive report. In the report, it mentioned that the last MSRs were completed in 2012, I believe. And then would we assume that the next round would come out in 2022, 23? Or is that?
Yes.
Yeah, every 5 years, the commission is required to review as necessary the sphere of influence for each agency. So we have these set up on 5-year increments. And we'll make a determination at that time whether things have changed enough to justify the preparation of another municipal service review.
Is it ever possible that we would bring that forward sooner than the 5 years, or are we really just going to plan on the next 5?
The commission is free to review the sphere of influence anytime it determines it would like to, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Zaragoza?
Yeah, I was just going to add on the transit end of it. I think being the chair, being a member of Gold Coast Transit, I think we have probably one of the best transit systems, here in Ventura County. I know East County has, their transit, but I think that I know that the concern that we have is transferring people that work in East County, people that work over in Thousand Oaks and Simi Valley and Moore Park need to connect, somehow, using the bus system, and I think we need to work on that. hopefully maybe also that Heritage Valley, I think is the name of it, Santa Paula, Fillmore, and Piru could join the Gold Coast Transit. And because we have quite a few students that come from those areas to Ventura College and Oxnard College, and of course we have Moore Park College there too. But I think that's something that, Kai, that we could, I think it's appropriate that, not Kai anyway, but the report you gave us, that we need to work together. And I know we have Steve Brown here, and we've talked about that, where we can probably come out with at least in West County, to have maybe Santa Paula, Fillmore, and Piru join us, in the transit. That would make it more efficient. And then hopefully have a transit connection, what we do have now with East County. It's something that we can work on. Thank you.
And it would be great to have this report recommendation, very objective recommendation, brought forward to the Transportation Commission, just as we know that the cities will be reviewing these with their councils.
That's right.
Okay, with that, we do have a couple of speaker cards. The first, Drew Powers with the City of Thousand Oaks. The gold medal winner, huh?
Good morning, Commissioners. Drew Powers, I'm the City Manager for the City of Thousand Oaks. My pleasure to be here before you today. Just wanted to briefly speak to thank LAFCo staff. They've been very collaborative in working with us on this municipal services review. But wanted to speak directly to the issue of transit. We're happy that this issue has been brought to light in the MSR for this year. And wanted to assure all the commissioners that while we've made significant progress, and I appreciate Commissioner Ramirez's comments that we don't have any service deficiencies, we certainly know that there's more that we can do. And as it relates to transit, we are stand ready to engage in a discussion countywide and to find out what opportunities we have for better regional collaboration. So just wanted to assure the Commission that this is very much on our radar. We're very much interested in talking with the other cities in the county about that. And I have staff here. If there are any questions, happy to answer those. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Thank you very much for your leadership on that. We have Dave Norman, City Manager of Camarillo.
Thank you very much. Dave Norman, City Manager of Camarillo. I want to thank Kai and Andrea for the excellent job they did on this report, not only in the finished product, but in its preparation. We spent a lot of time exchanging information, reviewing drafts, and Kai and especially Andrea went to a lot of work to make sure that information was correct and it was correctly represented in the report, and we're very thankful for that. I echo Drew's words on transit. The City of Camarillo is very open to additional dialogue to improve connections and interface between West County and East County. And as was stated by Andrea in her report, yes, there are cultural, political, financial aspects and idiosyncrasies between all the agencies, but we can certainly move forward to the goal of a more integrated and better flowing experience for the patrons. Brought up in our report, and I'll take the silver medal if Drew's going to take the gold. But I'll take the silver. And with the citywide lighting and landscape maintenance district, the title of that district is somewhat of an oxymoron given our experience. So what happened in Camarillo is the citywide lighting and landscape maintenance district was set up, and people, and when it was started, we had a good chunk of the city that was in the system. Somewhere along the way, in previous administrations, things broke down, and then a lot of new subdivisions came on board, and they weren't annexed into the district. Then, post-Prop 13, when we started to see a lot of HOAs for cities, HOAs then became responsible for the lighting and landscaping areas that they were creating. And so they've taken that over. And so in Camarillo, you see this gap between the original people who were in the district, those who are not in the district, and then the newer HOAs, which are, again, paying into the district. Now, 2 city managers before me have tried to tackle this problem, and I can assure you I may not be the last. So with that, we are going forward solving the problem. We just still have this sizable gap in people who aren't paying. And if any of you have ever tried in your cities to do a positive 218 vote for an assessment district, and you're successful at it, then I want to come to work for you, because we haven't found that solution yet. But again, thank you for your report, and excellent job.
Mr. Norman, I also want to thank you for your desire to work with the other cities and try to assist with our transit system, because that's what it takes. Have you actually done a 218 vote on landscape and lighting districts? As I was really surprised when I was with the Thousand Oaks City Council that they were all approved. You know, that at least the voters there approved them, and I was really surprised.
Well, that's wonderful. I'll be talking to Drew about that.
Yeah, so if you haven't tried it, you might surprise yourself.
Well, that's why he's the gold medal winner.
Okay. You kind of inherited that one, I think. Okay, are there any other speaker cards on this? I do have a question for Mr. Kettle, if you don't mind. When we are talking about the recommendations from LAFCo regarding transit, the recommendations were, a lot of them pointed towards Gold Coast Transit being one that, I guess probably because it's already the largest, one that could expand further and with other cities in it. If other cities were to join it, would it be that each of the cities would also have an elected official on the Gold Coast board?
So actually, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'm Darren Kettle. I'm the Executive Director with the Ventura County Transportation Commission. It's probably a very good question of the General Manager of Gold Coast, Steve Brown, but my understanding is under their legislation is that they're allowed to, a city is allowed to join that district, and when that local jurisdiction joins the district, that they would have a seat on that board. Is that correct, Steve?
I don't know if you had any comments on this, but seeing that we have both the chair of Gold Coast Transit and I'm the chair of the Transportation Commission here, and the desire of the city managers, what a great forum, that something that LAFCo could help further. So if there was anything that LAFCo could do towards us, it's great to see, quite frankly, city managers who have been, from cities that have been reluctant to look at regional coordination and consolidation. Now looking at that, it would be great to see that moved forward.
And Madam Chair, each member city in the county has a seat at Gold Coast Transit.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, that's the way it works. So if we had Santa Paula and Fillmore and so forth, they would have a seat there too.
Madam Chair, and what I think I heard from you, and I will take it as direction from my chair, that if we can have Andrea come and present her findings, of course with Kai's approval, to the commission, to VCTC, so that they can see the report. I think it was exemplary work, and would be happy to agendize that on one of our future commission meetings.
And I hear they have a really nice big building too, as VCTC is looking for a building,
right.
We
the
can
humble
coordinate
confines
that
of
too.
VCTC.
And Madam Chair, by the way, too, at Gold Coast we're building a brand new yard, city yard. Transit yard that's beautiful, so we can really accommodate, any additional people that might want to join Gold Coast Transit.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. So that concludes
Madam
our
Chair.
public comments. Yes.
Could I just ask if Mr. Brown has any comments? He's here from Gold Coast.
Steve?
No comments. All right. Thank you for being here.
You're up for growing if the opportunity was presented?
Thank you. Steve Brown, General Manager of the Gold Coast Transit District. I didn't really have any comments, but I did want to comment that the report was an excellent report, and we really appreciate the chance to review that. Yes, as Darren mentioned in our legislation, it does allow for any other city to petition to join the district, and that opportunity is there. In our new admin and operations facility that we're building a dais to accommodate 11 seats in the future, should that ever happen. So we're planning that for the future. We're putting in infrastructure to eventually handle electric buses. We know those are coming, so we're planning for the future and making those improvements. And I have experience in other cities working in expanded districts that included multiple cities, multiple agencies, and we made it work there. And the public didn't know who was running the bus, but they did know that the bus was coming and that the fare was going to be the same. So
right.
we're prepared to do that in the future.
On your electric buses, are you solar powering the electricity?
I think in the broad scheme of things, the power grid to support electric buses nationwide is still not quite there.
Okay.
But we're putting in conduit, and as we pour 10 inches of concrete in our bus yard, we're going to put the conduit in so we don't have to go back and dig it up later.
Getting it prepped for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much
you.
for that.
Thank you, Steve.
So we have no more comments on the municipal reviews from the commissioners or for the public? None from staff at this time, then we can entertain a motion?
So moved.
We just need one motion for all MSRs.
It's one agenda item?
Well,
Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
For
Are
both.
there any objections or abstentions? Okay, then we'll call that unanimously approved. Does that work for you? Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming today, too.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, before we move on, I would just like to acknowledge the work effort that Andrea did to accomplish what she did. The amount of research, the interaction and the coordination with city staff, multiple city staffs from all of the cities was just tremendous, and it resulted in a really incredible product that I think that we are very proud of as staff, and I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yes.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Andrew.
It really should go on our website, the county one. And it's an encyclopedia, really, of the county, cities and county. So our next item on the agenda is item 10. It's a sphere of influence reviews. And no updates necessary is what it says for item 10.
Yes, so agenda item number 10 is the sphere of influence reviews, no updates necessary for the following 8 cities. Cities of Camarillo, Moore Park, Ojai, Oxnard, Port Hueneme, Ventura, Simi Valley, and Thousand Oaks. So again, this is the same background that I provided in the last presentation. LAFCo is required to determine a sphere of influence for each city and special district on or before January 1, 2008, and every 5 years thereafter. And the sphere of influence, again, is the definition of that is the probable physical boundary and service area of a local agency as determined by the Commission. And LAFCO is required to conduct an MSR prior to or in conjunction with sphere of influence updates. So during the first round of sphere of influence reviews about 10 years ago, the Commission updated most of the city's spheres. During the most recent round, the spheres of only 2 of the cities, Camarillo and Ventura, were updated, and that was to remove agricultural land from each of those spheres. The current spheres for those 8 cities continue to reflect the probable physical boundary and service area of each of the cities, based on LAFCO staff review and consultation with each of the city managers. And in general, the city's spheres of influence acknowledge the areas anticipated for future development in the city's general plans. So spheres of influence are, this is the LAFCO law section related to spheres of influence. To determine a sphere of influence, written determinations are required with respect to present and planned land uses, present and probable need for public facilities and services, present capacity of public facilities and adequacy of public services, and the existence of any social or economic communities of interest. I'm just going to run through very briefly the actions that LAFCO took with respect to the spheres in the past. The city of Camarillo, the sphere was updated in 2007 and in 2012. And again, that was to remove that, the update in 2012 was to remove some agricultural land at the northeast part of the city, adjacent to the city. The city of Moore Park sphere was updated in 2007 and reviewed in 2012. Reviewed meaning that no change to the sphere was made at that time. The city of Ojai sphere was updated in 2007, reviewed in 2012. No changes were made in 2012. The city of Oxnard sphere was updated in 2007 and reviewed in 2012. The city of Port Hueneme sphere was reviewed in 2004 and in 2009. The city of Ventura's sphere was updated in 2007 and in 2013. Agricultural land near Harbor Boulevard and the 101 was removed, as that is agricultural land and was not anticipated to be developed in the future within the city. The City of Simi Valley sphere was updated in 2007 and reviewed in 2013. And the City of Thousand Oaks sphere was updated in 2007 and reviewed in 2012. Staff recommends that the actions related to the sphere of influence reviews are exempt from CEQA, and because it can be seen with certainty that there is no possibility that the activity in question may have a significant effect on the environment. Notice of the public hearing was published in the Ventura County Star, posted on LAFCo's website, and posted outside the Government Center, and there were no comments received on this item. The recommendations to LAFCo are that, subject to the Commission's acceptance of the MSR reports for the subject cities, review the sphere of influence for each of the following cities and determine that no sphere of influence update is necessary for those 8 cities listed, or for the 7 cities listed, and review the sphere of influence for the City of Port Hueneme and determine that no sphere of influence update is necessary. And again, the City of Port Hueneme is called out separately because no MSR was prepared for the city. And that concludes the presentation for item 10.
Thank you. Commissioner
Madam Chair,
Zaragoza.
excellent presentation again. The question I have is, I saw Oxnard, Ventura, the sphere of influence goes all the way out into the ocean. How many, is it a mile, 2 miles, or what?
Yes.
What, can you show that one again?
Oh, it's gone.
Well, it goes out into the ocean.
Yeah.
How far?
Is it 3 miles? I believe it's
Is
3
it 3
miles.
miles?
And that's based on the state's determination of what is that?
So
It's
what's-
based on state jurisdictional waters, which extend 3 miles out.
Okay, because, so in other words, we can go back and see. So it's 3 miles that goes out, and how wide? As wide as the,
It was almost like whomever established that sphere took the lines as they were going out to sea and just kept them going straight out 3 miles.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know the rhyme or reasoning behind that. They've always been that way as far as we can tell. Right.
So do we have any roads and stop signs out there?
Can I make a
Commissioner
comment?
Freeman?
Does that mean if they wanted to build
That's what-
a dock out there with houseboats,
That's right.
hypothetically, would it have to come to LAFCO or not?
Well, what's interesting is these areas are in the city as well.
Okay.
So, it's kind of challenging for us when someone asks us how big is the city of Oxnard. Well, it's like, do you want to know the total size or just the land? You know, so we have to go through and try to exclude. And there's no real basis for us to figure out where that line should be if it's following the coast. I mean, it's a high tide, low tide, mean
But it's
tide.
3 miles out.
Right, right. So I think that was just kind of the default position of the commission at that time
Okay,
when they
I
were
just
established.
saw the map and it's interesting.
Right.
Does it have anything to do with oil drilling?
That's
The
what I was
ability to
thinking.
have
know-
a say in oil drilling?
That was actually, somebody did mention that. However, I found no basis in the record for that.
Okay.
Yes, I think-
Commissioner Ramirez?
I just want to add a point of information. Just recently, last night even, the city council agreed to choose a map for district elections. It's been a very compact process. And it was confusing to the public because the maps always showed it going out into the ocean, and it's the exact same map. And that is the explanation that, you know, the city has some jurisdiction over there, but I don't think we're going to approve any, I'm not going to approve any houses out in the ocean.
Whose district is that going to be?
That could be your extra district.
Thank you, excellent.
Is that something that is worth looking into the background on? Because if it isn't necessary, wouldn't that be something that LAFCo would look at and say, why would you have that out there then?
My only hesitation would be, what would we then base the boundaries of the city on? You know,
That's more legal.
exactly. I mean, there's issues like in Ventura, the groins, you know, the jetties there. Where do you draw the boundaries of the city if you're using mean high tide or the mean tide? There's harbor issues. So I don't know.
So it's as good as any boundary, I guess, then, right?
Pretty much is that. That's what it
Okay.
comes down to.
All righty. Are there any other, Mr. Richards, Commissioner Richards?
It's my understanding that virtually everything from the high tide mark out to sea is regulated by the State Lands Commission.
But it's still part of the city, even though it's regulated by the Lands Commission.
I don't I'm not that versed on where the city limit is, but
Somewhere out in the ocean.
it begs the question as to why is the city limit out that far when they have really no ability to control it? I mean, from the high tide mark out to sea is state lands commission.
Excuse me, but the city of Ventura also has the same,
Yeah, all of the
Yeah,
coastal.
all the coastal
ones-
cities.
Cities do.
yeah,
Maybe in the entire state it goes that way.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Commissioner Parvin has some.
Well, I have a question relative to the military. Don't they actually own the water there? I mean, they control the water too,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. The Magoo and all the way up
The
to.
harbor and-
Yeah.
And
But-
for safety reasons, I think, as well.
But I think maybe maybe consummate, so maybe this is a legal definition of it, having to go out all the way to, even though we can't build or do anything out there. Is that true? Basically, I don't know.
Yeah, basically, I don't know. You know, you're talking about jurisdiction, even though the city's boundary goes out 3 miles, practically speaking, due to the State Lands Commission, due to the Coastal Commission, due to the federal government, the city doesn't have much power to do anything out there.
Mr. Fish.
Okay. Do you have a comment? Yes, Commissioner Freeman.
I just have a question. When I look at all of the sphere maps, there are a lot of islands, unincorporated islands within most jurisdictions. Has LAFCo projected any time when we'd start looking at those again? I mean, the laws have changed, allowing or making it easier for annexations to occur. I know that on a property owner level or residential level, probably wouldn't be very popular, but it seems to make sense when there are contracts like for Ventura County Sheriff within jurisdictions where there's a police department. I mean, it does, service level doesn't make any sense.
You're absolutely right, and the commission has adopted policies to encourage the annexation of those unincorporated islands. The basis for the commission's policies is that state law that gives a whole authority to LAFCo to approve the annexation of islands without a public hearing, without a protest vote, et cetera. And the commission's, like I said, policies reflect that. However, the islands that you saw, there's several in Thousand Oaks. They actually don't meet the definition of an unincorporated island that's subject to those that law. So it would be up to the city to voluntarily pursue. It's because of their size, primarily.
Size, population. Size based on population or
Size based on acreage.
Acreage.
Right, acreage, and then some of the uses within them. There was, I think, some ag uses. You know, a piece of property used for agriculture does not meet the definition of an unincorporated island. I think anything over 40 acres, or I forget the acreage, anything over that is not an unincorporated island. So that's the primary reason why Thousand Oaks, those islands haven't been annexed. There are some islands in Simi Valley. Now, when the commission was considering these policies that would otherwise require annexations of islands as part of larger annexations, they got special legislation passed that exempted these islands from that state law, and therefore commission policies. Now, that piece of legislation sunsetted a couple of years ago, I think in 2014. So now those islands will be subject to the commission's policies during the next annexation of over 40 acres to City of Simi Valley.
Just Simi Valley?
Well, it applies to all cities.
All
Any
cities,
annexation
right.
over 40 acres kicks in the commission's
Right.
policy.
Realistically, if you look at the sphere and the curb, that's not likely to happen.
Right, right. So if the city wanted to pursue that, they could. They could submit an application to LAFCo to annex these islands. LAFCo would have no authority to do anything other than approve it, not subject to a protest hearing. It would basically be forced in, but that would be incumbent on the city to do that.
Commissioner Zaragoza?
Do they have to go to the voters if the city applies to annex a specific area? Does it have to go to the voters, or it just comes to LAFCO?
To the 40 acres?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on whether it's outside the curb or not.
Okay.
Right. If it's outside the curb, that would have to go to the voters, most likely first, and then come to LAFCO for
But
approval.
if they're in the curb, then
Right.
they can do it.
Right, then they can come straight to LAFCO without a public vote.
Interesting.
It is. I know in Thousand Oaks, it's kind of like Swiss cheese there, but those unincorporated areas are full of people really glad that they're in an unincorporated area. And additionally, if the cities take it on, it's only cost. It's not really anything they're going to get in property tax to make up for the additional costs it will take to maintain the city, those unincorporated areas. So there isn't a lot of energy towards that.
Right, and
Question.
the commission's policies have been successful in addressing most of the islands. It was successful in the city of Santa Paula coming forward and annexing their islands. It was successful in the annexation of the Montalvo Islands as part of that parklands development that the commission approved. So Santa Paula and Oxnard has annexed a couple of their islands. So overall, it's been successful in eliminating most of the islands in the county. So.
Excellent question. Okay, then that concludes our item 10. We already voted on that, correct? And we'll go, we did not? Oh, I thought we had a motion. Did we?
Well,
Okay.
I think I seconded it. What was it? Somebody, well, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, then we have a motion and a second. Are there any objections or abstentions to the motion? Seeing none, then that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Good discussion. Item 11, this is regarding the sphere of influence for the city of Fillmore.
I'm not going to go over the background again for spheres of influences and municipal service reviews. For the city of Fillmore, we do recommend that there be one update made to the city's sphere of influence. The sphere was updated in 2007 and reviewed in 2013, so no changes were made during the last round in 2013. The recommended sphere update is for that small triangle. It's about a ½ acre shown in yellow. It's at the south part of the city. It has a county general plan designation of open space urban reserve, and it does not have a city general plan designation. So the city has no plans for development of that parcel. It is outside the city's urban restriction boundary, and it is subject to the city's SOAR, Save Open Space and Agricultural Resources Ordinance. So a city-wide vote would likely be required in order for that parcel to be developed. This is basically a cleanup of the sphere. The recommended actions are exempt from CEQA because it can be seen with certainty that there's no possibility for the activity in question to have a significant effect on the environment. Notice of hearing was published in the Star on the LAFCo website and posted outside the Government Center. There were no comments received. Staff recommends that the Commission determine that the sphere of influence update for the City of Fillmore is exempt from CEQA, that it review and update the sphere of influence for the city pursuant to LAFCo law, and that it adopt a resolution making determinations and updating the sphere of influence for the city. And that concludes the presentation.
So we're here to change the sphere to eliminate a ½ acre that's in the city and put it outside the city, right?
The sphere, correct.
Okay, that ½ acre. Commissioner Freeman?
Did this recommendation go to the city prior to this hearing?
The city staff, we consulted with city staff and discussed with them that.
But you don't know that if it went to the council or not?
I believe it would not have gone to the council.
It did not?
No.
Thank you.
Does the property owner get notified?
No.
So any other questions? If not, we will entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion. And a second. Are there any objections or abstentions? Not seeing any. We'll deem that unanimously approved too. We're on a roll. Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll go on to the the sphere of influence review and update for the city of Santa Paula.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. This is LAFCo 1802S. It's the City of Santa Paula Sphere of Influence Review and Update. So I want to start off with a couple of sections of LAFCo law, and I'm really doing this for the benefit of those commissioners who weren't around when this was last considered 3 times by the commission over the past 5 years. So as you know, LAFCo law starts with Government Code Section 56,000, and it includes a number of references to spheres of influence and what their purpose is. I want to start off with 56301, which talks about the purposes of LAFCo. So among the purposes of the commission are discouraging urban sprawl, preserving open space and prime agricultural lands, encouraging the efficient provision of government services, and encouraging the orderly formation and development of local agencies based on local conditions and circumstances. Now, regarding spheres of influence, the Government Code says that in order to carry out its purposes and responsibilities, which I just read, for planning and shaping logical and orderly development, the Commission shall develop and determine the spheres of influence for each city and enact policies designed to promote the logical and orderly development of areas within the sphere. So the Commission is required to use the sphere to achieve its purposes as outlined in the Government Code. So what is a sphere of influence? You've heard this several times already today. It's the plan for the probable physical boundaries and service area of the local agency as determined by the Commission. So the Commission is making a determination that that area within the sphere is probably going to be annexed to the city and become part of the city, and services are going to be extended to it. So, as we go through this presentation and as the Commission is considering this, the Commission really should ask itself, does the current sphere of influence for the city of Santa Paula represent the probable boundaries and service area as determined by your Commission? Does it discourage sprawl? Does it preserve open space and prime agricultural lands? Does it ensure the efficient provision of services? Does it encourage orderly formation and development of the city? Does it encourage logical and orderly development? And is it consistent with Ventura LAFCo policies? Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the history behind the sphere of influence and how it got to where it is currently. So the sphere is large. It's the largest. It contains more unincorporated land than any other sphere of influence for any city by a large margin. It's about 7,600 acres, and this is of unincorporated land, or almost 12 square miles. It extends approximately 5 miles north of the city, and it's almost 3 miles wide. Now, if this sphere extended to the west of the city, it would include all of the agricultural land between the city of Santa Paula and Ventura. It would include the community of Satacoy, and would actually extend into the city of Ventura. That's just to get your idea how big this sphere is. Its current uses are undeveloped open space and agriculture, primarily orchards. Now, this is the sphere as it existed in 1997. It essentially follows the boundaries of the city's general plan at that time. You'll see in a minute that it coincides with the land use map that was prepared and adopted by the city. However, in 1998, the city changed its general plan to include these expansion areas to the north of the city. And my discussion really is focusing on the area north of the city. So the general plan added the Fagan Canyon expansion area here, right there, and then of course the Adams Canyon expansion area. So the anticipated development for Fagan Canyon, it was about 2,173 acres, and it was envisioned for 450 residential units and some limited commercial, about 75,000 square feet. The Adams Canyon expansion area is 5,413 acres, and the development envisioned back in 1998 was for 2,250 units, a population of almost 7,000, 152,000 square feet of commercial, 2 hotels and golf courses, some schools, and recreation. Now, soon after the general plan was changed, the city approached LAFCo and asked that these 2 expansion areas be included within the city sphere of influence. So first for Fagan Canyon, in 1998, the commission did approve the inclusion of Fagan Canyon within the sphere of influence. And again, that was based on the amount of development envisioned in the general plan. But the commission's decision to include this was not based on any type of land use planning. There was never a land use plan, infrastructure plan, service plan, et cetera, prepared for Fagan Canyon. And the inclusion predated the current municipal service review process that's necessary to update a sphere of influence. So this is pre-MSRs. The request from the city at that time also included a request for LAFCo to include, of course, Adams Canyon within the sphere of influence. Now, the commission expressed concerns over the city's ability to provide services within Adams Canyon, so the city or the commission did not include it within the sphere at that time. So the city in 2000 submitted a request to reconsider that determination, and based on some additional information that was provided by the city, the commission did include Adams Canyon within the sphere of influence. And again, that was based on that level of development, that 2,250 residential units, et cetera. And again, there was no land use planning, and in 2000, this still predated the municipal service review process that the commission currently has to follow to update a sphere of influence. So this is how the sphere of influence ended up in its current location. It's been this way since 2000. So I want to talk a little bit about the county and the city general plans as they apply to the area within the sphere of influence, the city's sphere of influence. The area is in the unincorporated county, so the regulatory plan is the county's general plan. And it designates about 6,600 acres for open space and urban reserve. Urban reserve just acknowledges it's in the sphere, but the real general plan designation is open space. And then about 1,000 acres are designated for agriculture. There are no urban uses in the area. There are no public roads or public facilities, save for some drainage facilities. And there's no urban services planned under the county's general plan. So that's the county's general plan. City's general plan, as I mentioned, it divides the area up into two expansion areas. You'll notice now, however, that the Adams Canyon expansion area extends well beyond the sphere here and here, about 1,100 acres, and I'll explain that in just a minute. So this is the history of the general plan as it applied to Fagan. So in 1998, as I mentioned, the level of development, 450 units, 76,000 square feet of commercial, some parks and open space. Now in 2005, the city council approved a general plan amendment for Fagan Canyon and approved a development that included 2,155 residential units, some commercial, schools, and some other uses. Now, this didn't please the voters, and they started collecting signatures to have this approval overturned at the ballot. They were successful in collecting adequate signatures. But before it got on the ballot, the city council went back and they withdrew their approval of this project and placed the project on the ballot as well for voter approval. The voters rejected that project, but the voters also passed an initiative imposing a requirement that the city council cannot increase development potential on this in Fagan Canyon beyond the 450 without voter approval. So it actually reverted back to the 1998 level of development. I'm still not used to this pointer, 450. So that's the current intensity of development that's envisioned in the general plan. Adams Canyon, as I mentioned in 2000, when it was included in the sphere of influence, it was a envisioned rather significant development, 2,250 residential units. I won't go over it all again. However, Adams Canyon at the time that SOAR came online and the curb was established, it was not in the curb in 2000. That changed in 2007 when the voters, they elected to expand the curb to include Adams Canyon, but they also voted to expand it beyond the sphere of influence to include about 1,100 additional acres. But as part of that, they reduced the amount of development from 2,250 units down to 495 units. 2 hotels became one golf course, 1 school, 300 acres of open space, no commercial. So as a result of voters, currently in the 7,586 acres north of the city, the general plan contemplates 945 residential units, 76,000 square feet of commercial, a hotel, a golf course, a school, and some parks and open space acreage. It doesn't address what happens to the thousands of other acres that would remain after this type of development. Now, here's the city's general plan for that area. for Adams Canyon and Fagan Canyon. The city has not adopted a land use plan. It has not adopted a circulation plan. There's no public facilities plan, and there's no open space plan. The extent of planning is essentially these boxes here, and those list the uses that I just discussed previously. So the general plan in this area, it's not consistent with general plan law, the requirements of which are all of these plans. So essentially, the city's general plan is not applicable to this area. I want to talk a little bit about the past sphere reviews that your commission has conducted, and I want to start with 2012. We talked about 2007 earlier. So as you know, LAFCo is required to review and, as necessary, update the spheres every 5 years. And in 2012, we did begin the process to review the sphere of influence for each city. We did prepare municipal service reviews that the commission did accept, and they accepted the MSR for Santa Paula in November, and they did adopt written determinations for Santa Paula. And they were similar to the determinations that were adopted today, and, in regards to the ability to provide service and planning in these areas north of the city. Now in March, associated with that adoption of the MSR, the commission did review the sphere of influence for the city in March of 2013. Now the commission was presented with 3 options. 1, to determine that no update is necessary. 2, remove most of Adams Canyon expansion area. Or 3, remove most of Adams Canyon and the Fagan Canyon expansion areas. Now there was a motion to approve option 1, determine that no update is necessary. However, that failed on a 3-3 vote. Then there was another motion to approve option 2, the removal of Adams Canyon. That also failed on a 3-3 vote. So as a result, the commission took no action, and kind of by default, the sphere remained unchanged. However, during that discussion, the commission did encourage the city to comprehensively plan for the expansion areas prior to the next scheduled review by the commission in 2017. Now, for reasons outlined in your staff report, the commission revisited its sphere review in May, about 2 years later, of 2015. Now, the absence of the city comprehensive planning for the expansion area was discussed at length. At that time, comprehensive planning for the expansion areas had not commenced by the city. However, the city did indicate that the council, just 2 weeks prior to this meeting, authorized funding to update the general plan. And they indicated to the commission that that update was going to include these expansion areas, and that the update would be completed prior to the 2017 review, that these areas would be planned for by 2017 when it next came before the commission. Now, at the request of the city, the commission continued the matter till September of that year, and they again revisited it. Again, the topic of planning was the primary discussion. And at that time, city representatives committed that they would comprehensively plan for these expansion areas by the next sphere of influence review in 2017. Now, based on these assurances, the commission voted to make no changes to the sphere, and it would be revisited as part of the scheduled 2017 review and update. And that's where we are now. So the current status of the city's general plan is it hasn't changed since the commissioner considered this back in 2012. Comprehensive planning for the expansion areas has not occurred. There remains no land use plan, circulation plan, public facilities plan, or open space plan. And even though the city has begun the update process to the general plan, they started that last year, they acknowledge that comprehensive planning for these areas are not going to be part of the city's update to the general plan. That instead, any comprehensive planning for these areas is going to have to come from the property owners within them, that they would have to approach the city, they would have to fund the comprehensive planning. Now, I understand that though some preliminary review has happened last year, there is no formal application to comprehensively plan for these expansion areas that have been submitted with the city. So, LAFCo law and sphere of influence updates. Again, we went over a lot of this. I will not go over the 5 written determinations. They were just talked about. There's also some policies in the handbook regarding the Commission's determination of a sphere of influence. And these pertain to existing and planned service area, lines of assessment and ownership, the creation of areas where it's difficult to provide services, and several criteria regarding conversion of agriculture and open space. So staff's analysis of these written determinations and these policies have led us to the conclusion or the recommendation that the commission update the commission's sphere of influence to remove the Adams Canyon expansion area and Fagan Canyon expansion area. And that's represented here. So our recommended sphere would be this dashed line here. Now the basis for that is, well, you'll notice the similarity between that and how the sphere of influence was back in 1997. And again, that's based on the city's general plan. So this is a comparison of the recommended sphere of influence and the city's general plan. You'll see that the recommended sphere of influence coincides with all of those areas that the city's general plan actually plans for. It coincides with their land use plan, their infrastructure plan, service plan, circulation plan. And when you compare the written determinations between the existing sphere and that recommended, well, I'll do that briefly. One of the written determinations is the present and planned land uses in the area. Well, in the current sphere of influence, the city has no planned land uses. Whereas in the recommended sphere of influence, it coincides with the city's general plan. So those are planned land uses. Number two, the present and probable need of public facilities in the area. Again, without having any plans in place, any infrastructure plans or plans to provide public services or facilities in the existing area of the sphere, it's hard to say that it's probable that this is the city's service area. Whereas under the recommended sphere of influence, it is planned for within the city's general plan. Again, the present capacity of public facilities and the adequacy of public services, that really cannot be determined in the current sphere of influence, as the city has not planned for any of that, whereas they have planned for it in the recommended sphere of influence. 4 and 5 don't apply. There are no social economic communities of interest or disadvantaged unincorporated communities around the city. And similarly, you can compare the existing sphere with the recommended sphere as it applies to the policies. Sphere should coincide with existing and planned service areas. The current sphere does not coincide with an existing service area or a planned service area of the city. However, the recommended sphere of influence does. Sphere should coincide with lines of assessment or ownership. The circumference of the sphere of influence is about 13 miles here. Only about 60% of it, only about 40% of it follows property lines. The majority of it doesn't. It actually bisects properties and cuts across property lines. So that policy is not met with the current sphere. However, the recommended sphere of influence, its entirety does coincide with property lines or lines of assessment. Section 4312B, it provides that the sphere should not create areas where it is difficult to provide services. Again, this is a very large area. It's steep terrain, hills, valleys, etc. Without plans in place, it can be assumed that there's going to be areas where it's difficult to provide services. But again, absent that planning, we just don't know. And then finally, for spheres of influence that would result in development that's likely to convert ag or open space, the commission must determine that the sphere will result in planned, orderly, and efficient development. And it does that by determining that 5 criteria are met. And it has to be all 5 criteria. Again, this is just a summary of those criteria. There's discussed in more detail in the staff report. But one of which is that the area is designated for non-agricultural and open space. Well, the city's general plan doesn't designate it for anything as far as land use designations, whereas it's designated for agricultural and open space in the county general plan. That there's insufficient vacant land already within the sphere. The city has, under the recommended sphere of influence, the city still has vacant land here in the East Area 1 that is development's soon to commence there. There's about 100 acres here that's vacant and it's slated for commercial development. There's commercial development that is being proposed in this area here within the sphere. So again, under the recommended sphere of influence, this criteria can be met that there is sufficient vacant land for additional development in the city under the recommended sphere. The third criterion that it won't adversely impact other agricultural and open space lands. Again, without land use planning, we can't make that determination. It's not within a green belt, that is true. And then the proposed use is consistent with local plans and policies, and again, without any local plans and policies adopted by the city for this area, it's hard to make that criteria, whereas it can be made within the recommended sphere of influence. So now this is just a brief summary of all of the points that are in the staff report. The staff report goes into much more detail, but I did not want to discuss every point in it. So our recommendation is that the commission determine that the sphere update is exempt from CEQA, review and update the sphere for the city, and adopt Resolution 1802S, making determinations and updating the sphere of influence, essentially to remove the Adams Canyon and Fagan Canyon expansion areas. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I know we have some speaker cards, too.
One quick question,
Yes.
and I'm sure that if it's removed, if we remove Fagan and Adam, can they come back later on and propose it again? Is that the way it works? If we remove it, then?
Right. If the commission pulls these areas outside of the sphere and a future development is considered by the city and approved by the city, then when that development comes to LAFCo for annexation, it would need to include a sphere of influence amendment. And at that point, there would be enough analysis maps of project approved for LAFCo to identify what the boundaries of this development are, what their service needs, and then base the sphere of influence on that approved development.
And right now, the general plan does not include Fagan or Adam at all.
That's correct.
Commissioner Freeman?
Thank you for the thorough report, but I have, this is a philosophy, but the voters approved this. And Santa Paula has had a lot of issues, which they're working through. Everything from the fires, the fire district issues, budget, but they're making great progress in their efforts, and they're doing an update of the general plan now. Since the voters approved this, I feel strongly that we have to respect what the voters do. Maybe it doesn't fit well into LAFCo law, but we have to respect what the voters decided. And it seems to me that I sound like I'm doing closing arguments, but I'm really not. The boundary, as it is neither affecting anything at all. And it gives the city the opportunity to plan that area or respond to a request for development in that area without the need for the sphere. I mean, the vote is important to me.
Mm-hmm. And they have flip-flopped.
Beg your pardon?
The voters have flip-flopped on this, too.
Well, they have, but the last vote,
right.
established it.
Okay, so we do have some comment cards? Yes.
Could you go back to your last slide? You read number C, adopt resolution, making a determination, updating the sphere, and then you went on to say that your recommendation was to remove the sphere.
We'll remove.
You read number C, and then you added a whole lot of verbiage onto that. It's not written up there.
Right. It's in the resolution. Adoption of that resolution would make determinations.
I think our determination was option one, option two, and option three.
No, that was the options for previous consideration of the city's sphere of influence. My recommendation is that the city update the sphere to remove Adams Canyon and Fagan Canyon. That's my only recommendation.
But B would remove it, right?
I'm sorry?
B would remove the...
Right. If the commission were to adopt that resolution, Adams Canyon and Fagan Canyon would come out of the sphere of influence.
So those aren't choices, that's all three, A, B, C.
Right, they are all related to the same recommendation.
Which is to take those two canyons outside of the sphere.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Now, the commission is free to take other action and direct staff to return and come back with another resolution that would change things to do whatever the commission decides.
And the whole point of the sphere of influence process or why we have spheres of influence. Could you get a little into that?
Well, it is what the commission considers to be the probable boundaries and service area. Now, when the commission typically makes that determination, it's based, for a city, it's based on the general plan of that city, because the general plan is what provides the commission with the information necessary to determine where land uses are going to be located, how they're going to be served, how they're going to be accessed, how they're going to be financed, and whether it can be self-sufficient and it's not going to have a detrimental impact on the rest of the city. And the commission can usually make these written determinations that I went over based on that type of information. Here, for the expansion areas, the commission doesn't have any of that type of information. Now, back in 2000, there was no requirement to prepare a municipal service review. There was no requirement for all of this information. There is now. And our review of the MSR and the determinations in the MSR, and as the written determinations to determine a sphere of influence as they relate to the expansion areas, has resulted in our recommendation that the information is not there for the commission to make all of those findings. Now, when a project is proposed and reviewed and approved by the city, the sphere of influence can be amended at that time based on that information.
So the issues like water, sewer, roads, fire, on, there was no environmental document that was done, a CEQA analysis on that expansion?
That's correct.
Okay.
That would be done, though, when a project was submitted, so you could respond to whatever was being proposed. Mm-hmm. Was this report given to the city manager in time to place it on the city council agenda?
No, it was only released on Thursday when you got it.
Mm-hmm.
We typically do not release to the public our reports before the commission gets them.
So back to the CEQA analysis, are spheres of influence, are they a project under CEQA?
I would say the retraction of a sphere is probably not, because it has no effect. Potentially the expansion of a sphere to include additional areas may be subject to evaluation under CEQA. And that's another reason why typically the commission will approach it as having a city be the lead. The city do the analysis, prepare the environmental document, and the commission would then use all of that information, including the environmental document, to base its establishment of a sphere of influence.
And that's also how SOAR is written, that it goes through the city council that then does the environmental document and then it goes on the ballot, but that was not the case here.
Right. What's interesting about Santa Paula is they've done it both ways. Like for the East Area 1 development project, the city processed that project. They approved that project. They did a financial feasibility study and they did an environmental review. Then it went to the voters. So the voters knew what they were voting on. In the case of Adams Canyon and Fagan Canyon, there was, when they were included in the sphere, there was never an environmental document done. There was never a site plan. There was never any real planning that was given to the voters to include this area in the curve.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I know we have speakers, but the last time that Santa Paula, that came as a recommendation to pull Fagan Canyon and Adam, Santa Paula says several years ago, give us more time. It's part of the general plan. We're going to do it. Give us more time, and here we are, 2018, and nothing's happened. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure, where they're at, and I'm sure maybe Santa Paula.
I mean, I agree, but they are doing an update now, and whether they proceed with a land use plan on the general plan for those two areas is yet to be seen. Maybe this is the leverage time to require them to do that since it's in their sphere. Maybe they can take a look at it, but in terms of an environmental document, there wouldn't be anything until there was an actual project to analyze. I just respect the...
Yeah, and I think the concerns, as the Chair mentioned too, was infrastructure and how are we going to get the water and sewer and fire trucks and so forth up into Adams Canyon, and so that was a big concern at the time.
But that wouldn't be known until you see a
Yeah.
project.
Well, I mean,
But-
right
and that's-
now, we do have before us, 450 units and 2,000 some acres. I mean, you think about 450 units could be an apartment building, a big apartment building. You don't need 4,100 or
Some
thousands
acres.
of it.
Anyway,
Yeah,
it-
2,000.
Could be a great park.
A great park, but that's not what's proposed, because there's actually a proposal, as we're reading it, how much is going to be in open space, the idea that 450 units would also have a school, that likelihood of that, as a council member, that isn't very likely, that one project of 450 units isn't going to generate enough funds to do a school. So there's a lot of questions, but a part of that would have been reviewed through a secret document, as has been done in other cases, and really is a requirement of SOAR, is my understanding. But at any rate, let's go. We'll go forward with our speaker cards. First, we have Elisa Woodburn, and following her, Michael Penrod. Okay, and we have a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, thank you.
And you representing the property owner?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. My name is Lisa Woodburn. I am here today representing the property owner, ADM Ranch LLC. That's three gentlemen local gentlemen who own the property now. We are asking, next slide. What am I not doing? Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, here we go. We are asking that you review the sphere of influence for the city of Santa Paula and determine that no update is necessary. The executive director, he's left out some information that we provided to him from your staff report on the significant progress that we've made for development of Adams Canyon. I'm here today to present that information to you, and we feel that you will see that the development plan is consistent with the general plan policies for the city of Santa Paula. And we do want to remind you, as Commissioner Friedman has mentioned, that in 2007, the citizens of Santa Paula voted to adopt a curb boundary that included Adams Canyon. And that vote was recently affirmed in 2016 when they voted on the recent SOAR and curb boundaries. This is a policy in your handbook, and I'm going to paraphrase it. This policy says that if citizens of a city have adopted a curb boundary, you need to be mindful and respectful of that in making any sphere of influence changes. And again, in 2016, the voters did affirm to include Adams Canyon in the curb. So you might be asking, what is the development plan for Adams Canyon? Well, unlike the previous owners, there's no golf course in this plan. The current owner's vision is for a sustainable neighborhood-oriented community with a focus on healthy lifestyles, local agriculture, and a connection to nature and the outdoors. We took that vision and we prepared a land use plan that is mindful of the environmental constraints and the topography of the property. So there, as you see here, there has been significant work done for the development of Adams Canyon. And I want to bring Mike Penrod up right now. He has some comments also to make on this slide.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mike Penrod. Been here before with the Lehman Eric Company on East Area 1, and we are actually out there doing a lot of work. We have a lot of infrastructure already in place, and homes will be starting to be built in less than 6 months. So it is a success story, and we are now working with the owners of this land. The owners of this land were not the owners back when all the issues and the promises were made. The owners just came into the land within the last year and a half or so. Since that time, they have asked us to help them go through and navigate the planning process and approval process. And we have assembled a team that has had a lot of the same people who was involved in East Area 1. So a lot of the experience we had for issues such as water and sewer and so on, and traffic circulation, a lot of those same consultants are now going to be part of our plan. It's including Jensen Design, Layton Geotechnical, Meridian Environmental. It includes Fair Piers Traffic Circulation, Hoffman Associates, which is the fiscal impact and financial feasibility. And the owners recently just completed obtaining a market study that just to verify that their vision was going to be acceptable in the marketplace. And that was just completed in November. So what has been accomplished in the last 6 months since they've been able to get actively involved in this, they've been able to not only conduct a market study to make sure that what their vision was going to be accepted in the marketplace. You're not going to spend millions of dollars obtaining entitlements if you don't know if it's going to work or not financially. Second of all, they've been able to do water availability. They have worked with Limoneira Company, the city, and Thermal Mutual to acquire enough water so that they can develop the plans for the 495 units. They also have worked out access for a secondary access point into this on the circulation plan with the landowners, which includes Limoneira Company, Vintage Petroleum, to get access all the way to the 150. So all this that we're talking about right now, we certainly do know that there's a lot of issues that have to be addressed. That's what the EIR process is for. We expect to have our initial studies underway in the next week for the application for the city to do this. We think that within 4 to 6 months we'll have the formal application, which will include a lot of the extensions of the work that we're doing. And we really would like to have an opportunity to go through with this and not have to deal with a sphere issue later on down the road. This is inside the curb boundary. As I said, it's been voted on twice. Nobody has flip-flopped on Adams Canyon. Fagan Canyon, yes, they voted in, then they voted out. So we can't address what's happening on Fagan Canyon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
A couple more things I just want to mention. From that last slide, we have kind of shown here in a chart, we illustrate the amount of land dedicated to various uses in the regulatory land use plan. And as you can see in here, of the 4,700 acres of Adams Canyon, roughly 3,455 acres is dedicated to agriculture, open space, or parks. So again, just in conclusion, we want to highlight what has been accomplished for Adams Canyon. We have new owners, and they have engaged an experienced consultant team. We have prepared a comprehensive land use regulatory plan. The owners have secured secondary access and water rights, that's most important. I mean, we couldn't do anything if we didn't have the secondary access and the water. We have prepared water and sewer studies, and now we're ready for the next step, which is to prepare a specific plan in the EIR. So again, we are asking that at this time you review the sphere of influence and you determine that no update at this point is required. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor.
So the Adams Canyon, it is in the general plan? It's included in the city general plan?
Yes, Ms. Zaragoza, it will be included as part of the update for the general plan. Mm-hmm. We know that we're going to have to fund a portion of that. The reason why the city hasn't included Adams Canyon or Fagan Canyon, they don't have the funds in there for their general plan update to go and take that onto task. So as part of our process of doing the environmental impact report and all the other studies, those studies will be utilized by the city in their general plan update also.
And also, Limoneira, how are they going to pump the water up there? How is the water going?
Well, that's part of it. Other part of it is wells that exist in the existing valley up there.
And what about the sewer?
The sewer.
Is it going to be on septic, or because we are just hearing in our municipal service reviews that they don't have sufficient capacity and their infrastructure, their current sewer plant isn't sufficient. So you looking at doing the sewer plant over again, or septic? How's that going to work?
You know, it's part of our future studies. We believe that we can do a self-sustained self-sustained package plant up there that would not have to then go into the city's sewer system.
And those package plans that I used to belong to VRSD, Ventura Regional Sanitation District, and we had one of those plans over in Malibu that did not work that properly. So
and this would be for thousands of homes?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't know.
It's 495 homes.
Oh, that's the Fagan one.
Yeah, that's Fagan. Yeah, no, Fagan, and technology now is really amazing. I mean, at the Limonera's home ranch, they're not hooked onto anybody's system, and they've gotten all their farm worker housing and everything else off of septic tanks and into a system that they build out there. If you ever want to go see it, it's really amazing.
Because I think in the MSR, for Sao Paulo, I think.
Okay, so you wouldn't be using their sewer treatment plant?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask?
Yes.
In your studies, are you going to need access through Fagan Canyon? I mean, is there any co-planning going on for circulation?
We don't require access through Fagan Canyon. We have secured access up, through the north and then out to the east to 150. But we have, we can work with Fagan, the ownership of Fagan Canyon, and come up with something.
Well, I was just curious if it was necessary.
It wasn't. It's not required. It's not secured.
And in terms of boundaries, is this how is this in relationship to the city? Is this twice as big as the city, that whole area of Adams Canyon?
Well, it's 4,700 acres. I'm not quite sure what the size of the city is. Kind of it's a lot of acreage in terms of what size the city is, that you would be a development in the city when you're actually multiple times bigger than the city itself in land area. Correct, but we're looking at this as an opportunity for, for public open space and trails and things, hiking trails and things through their open space area. I mean, on our plan, we showed that, and we've included that. It's going to be a lot of benefits to the citizens of Sao Paulo.
200 acres of open space in the Adams Canyon, 6,758 acres, right? 200 acres.
Right.
Okay. Commissioner?
Thank you. I'd like to ask you a question. If the Thomas Fire has made any changes to your ideas about development there in terms of water, fire service, roads, access?
Well, it certainly has shown that you have to be prepared for it in ways that nobody had contemplated before. It would certainly tell you that the areas where you're going to plan on building your homes, you'll have to do some fire suppression areas around there. One thing that's been very evident during this fire was that the homes that had a significant amount of avocado trees were able to survive, and the areas that didn't have that were not so much able to survive. So this is going to be an ag-dominated development. So therefore, everything that can be done for fire suppression around it will be involved most likely with all the ag that they're planning on doing for the sustainability.
And the secondary access, that I think is going to be very important, not only for Adams Canyon, but for other parts of the city. I mean, if you can get from 150 down to Foothill Road through Adams Canyon, and you can't now, I mean, I think that could be very helpful.
What kind of water are you looking at for watering your golf course?
There is no golf course.
Oh, I'm looking at it here where it says golf course. Maybe I've got the wrong plan.
There's no golf courses.
495 units, one resort hotel, one golf course, one school.
That's the old one.
Oh, okay.
That's part of the confusion. There's so many board packages in here from 2013 on down. I apologize, Kai, that was what I was reading.
Yeah.
That's what the general plan allows, I see.
Yeah, the plan that we prepared wasn't included in your packet.
And how about the
Is
school?
it accurate with the 200 acres of open space? Is that part of the plan? Is one school part of the plan?
Yeah, we have land for one school, yes.
Land for it, but it's not actually a school, it's just acres.
Well, we haven't gotten that far yet, but we've dedicated a property for a school. We have, like I said, we have over 4,700 acres, 3,455 acres dedicated to agriculture, public open space, other open space, as Commissioner Parks mentioned, and then we have over probably about 70 acres of public parks.
Alternate Commissioner Richards.
Just a quick question. Lisa, is the Meridian, the environmental consultant, are they under contract to the city or to the developer?
They'll be under contract with the city.
Thank you.
Got one.
Yes.
Lisa, if the commission was to remove Adams Canyon from the sphere, what would that mean for your workload and timeframes? What would that do for this project going forward? You'd mentioned before that you would prefer not to have to think about sphere issues going forward, but what does that look like for you guys?
Commissioner Ross, what it would cause would be just one more added step in the process of going back through. But, we've said all along, the curb boundary is not changing. So we are planning on submitting and going forward, working with the city, whatever happens today, but it would sure be a whole lot easier, at least on Adams Canyon, if we didn't have one more step we had to deal with.
So you don't see that there would be a negative effect to the progress you're making on the project if the commission did remove the sphere and then considered it again at a later date when everything has been itemized and summarized correctly?
Well, it certainly gives the landowners some pause for worried about coming back to the same commission that just took it out and now asking for approval. Understanding that there'll be a whole lot more information you guys can all look at. But at least with not having to worry about that one more step would make it somewhat easier for sure.
And let me point out that with the sphere in place, it still has to come to the commission for the annexation, which gives the commission the ability to review the project and the environmental document. So the commission isn't losing any control, as it were, by not changing the sphere.
Also wondering, the city can't afford to update their general plan to include this. Will the development pay for the city to update the general plan? And what is the time frame? I don't see anyone from this. Is someone from the city here? If you can, okay, you're okay. We'll go ahead and get you when it's up. Okay. Are there other questions for the applicant?
The only concern I have, Mike and Lisa, is that we've been hearing from, this has happened in 98 and 2013 and 14 and 15. Last time the city was here and we talked about it, and they promised at the time that they were going to have it done several years ago. And here we are again, with the same scenario. And my biggest concern is, is infrastructure and, how are we going to get the water out there? How are we going to get the sewer? How are we going to get fire trucks up there? And I think Commissioner Ramirez mentioned something important. How about a fire? Here we had the Thomas fire that it started in Santa Paula and 30 minutes later was in Ventura, and then on down into Santa Barbara. So that's scary.
Scary. Supervisor Sargos, we understand there's a lot of issues that need to be worked out and understood entirely before this project can be approved by not only the city, but then eventually by LAFCo. All those will be taken care of in the EIR with all the mitigation requirements as part of that. Back to your about what has happened numerous times. There's hardly anybody at the city left who was here 2 years ago. It's all new people, including new council members and everything else. So when working very closely with staff, Jana Minsk is about one of the few who's still there, and unfortunately she's not here today because she's on vacation. Her and Carl deserved some time off, but we found that working with the new staff and the new ideas, and they've got a let's get it done attitude now, where that wasn't so much before.
And going back into what Commissioner Ross mentioned, if we did pull it out, if we do remove Fagan and Adam, and you start working, and you can always come back and say, hey, now we have a project. Now we have, all the components that are required to develop that whole Adam Canyon. If that happens too, then you can still continue anyway.
we understand that that's the
Yep.
opportunity. It would sure be nice if we didn't have to worry about that one, though. So
Yeah.
that's the other side of it. You'll all get to see this before anything could ever happen after the city approves it, if it does approve it.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, one more comment, Supervisor Zargos, is that this is a new landowner. I mean, I know that this project has come before LAFCO's other previous times, but not with this current landowner.
Yeah, you just bought it, a year ago? Yeah, okay.
And you're saying you're doing something next week, some kind of application next week?
No. We said within the next 4 to 6 months we'll have a formal application, but we're kicking off all of the studies next week to get started for the EIR process.
Okay. There are questions, comments, and we'll go to the next speaker. Lynn Jensen, followed by James Mason.
Excuse me, I'm Lynn Jensen, representing Ventura County CoLab today. I just want to say that Ventura County desperately needs new housing, worker housing, executive housing, middle-class housing. And it's over 700 homes that were destroyed by the fire here, and it's really imperative that we think about that. As housing prices and rents increase, more people must commute longer distances to work, increasing the congestion on our freeways. And economists have targeted this lack of housing supply as restricting economic growth in the county, and that we are, because of that, in a recession. The projects north of Santa Paula have a long history and have been supported by SOAR votes upheld by the Santa Paula voters. And the specific parameters, particularly of Adams Canyon, are challenging, but we think attainable by the property owners, these new property owners who are diligently proceeding on the development plans. The plans seem to have very many benefits to the community. They're saying 3,455 acres of open space and parks and hiking trails, something that I think the entire county will be able to use in the end. And we just wanted to talk a little bit about the SOAR vote. Communities supporting development in a SOAR vote is rare throughout the county. Most people like to see their communities stay the same. And for those of us, including myself, who have housing, it's just human nature to oppose development in our backyard. But Santa Paula has been forward-thinking. They have been supporting growth to improve their standard of living and to improve their city. And we think that LAFCo should take this into account, take into account the public will, really against the odds. Retracting the sphere of influence right now in the Adams Canyon area seems to serve no purpose but to add another roadblock to projects that the voters have supported, and they've said what they've supported and they've given some parameters to that. We are suggesting perhaps that the LAFCo board would give the owners a year to get their project submitted and have the LAFCo staff work with the owners and to help with these community-supported housing projects to come to fruition. And, of course, by LAFCo law, to be logical and orderly development. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And our last speaker is with the City of Santa Paula, and this is James Mason.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner, other commissioners. My name is James Mason. I'm the Deputy Planning Director for the City of Santa Paula. And as Mr. Loma mentioned earlier, bless you.
Bless you.
We didn't have an opportunity to really have a chance to review the report from the standpoint of council. Staff did, obviously. We've looked at it over the last few days. I went to council meeting last night and was directed to come here tonight. And consistent with the curb line and with the voters, council has requested that the sphere remain as is. One of the things that's really important about development, especially in Santa Paula, in any city, really from economic development and a development perspective, is certainty. And as Mr. Penrod mentioned earlier, understanding that this could be pulled and they could come back from a standpoint of landowners and developers, understanding what the process is and how you can move forward starts to set the pace for what can happen as far as development. When I look at these areas, I think a lot of what we see as far as number of homes and what was originally put in there may not be all that realistic, but as we start to see as far as new technology, as what we see as far as our economy and where the opportunities are, we see there's great opportunity from the standpoint of open space and growth and economic development because of open space. We look at Santa Barbara and Santa Monica Mountains and how much attraction that is. So a blend of having these sustainable areas, open space areas, and living starts to create, a certain cachet within the community. And Santa Paula really needs those opportunities. What we do have, as earlier mentioned by staff, we do have space for growth and expansion, but it's extremely limited. When we look at our opportunities for future economic development within our city, we have 31,000 people, and what we have to be able to grow from that as far as job growth and new employment and new revenue, sales tax and business growth is extremely limited. We've got to be really creative with what we have. These areas create a great opportunity for that, and both Adams Canyon, Fagan Canyon. In addition, we have another project that was proposed, I believe, back in 2005. And again, a lot of things have been on hold or circled the drain as we went through the Great Recession. So property ownership changes, people putting things on hold and trying to decide whether they want to make a move. And one of those projects is right at the southwest corner of Adams Canyon, right on the city border. And that was originally a 79-unit subdivision. And they're looking at coming back within the next probably 2 weeks with an application to the city with a significantly sized down development project of residential that, again, looking at circulation, looking at fire protection, looking at water, sewer, and all those things. And I think, as has been reiterated many times, whatever happens, whatever your decision is, you're going to have a chance to be able to see all of these projects. And I think probably the main thing I need to underscore, and this is definitely from Commissioner Zaragoza's comments, we had some challenges financially from the standpoint of our general plan. Putting together our general plan just basically on a shoestring budget has been a challenge. And we're getting to that point where this will be done probably before the end of this year. But those sphere of influence areas, the only way that was going to be able to happen was with developers coming in or a proposed project. There's just no way we have the staff resources. I mean, we're down 20% less staff than we were when this originally came to the commission. So that's, if I can answer any questions, I'd be glad to do so.
Commissioner Zaragoza?
James, so the city's okay with the development not connecting to the sewer system?
It's like the commission.
Well, we're not there yet, but
we're not there yet. But like the commission, if they're able to define a project that can meet the sustainability requirements and provide benefits to the city, you've got to look at all those things.
Because you need money to support that sewer plant,
We do, but we also have East Area 1 and other opportunities of growth. That we've got to look at the whole picture, and I guess not to be cliche, not kind of cut off our hand despite.
What is it, 2,100 homes? Says that's quite a few dollars, to support that sewer plant,
Significantly, and to bring it up to where we need it.
And upgrade it,
Are there any other questions? No, not at this time. Thank you very much. That, I believe, is all our comment cards. Does staff want to, do you have any other comments after you've heard the public testimony to help us?
No, unless you have any questions for me.
Yes, Commissioner Ross.
Thank you. With Adams Canyon, to look at the sphere of influence again, would there be an additional cost for that portion of the application for the applicant?
The cost would be about $2,000.
Okay.
In addition to the cost for the annexation. The application for a sphere of influence amendment consists, I think, of 5 questions. Typically, when it's associated, when it's a concurrent annexation and sphere of influence amendment, the information that we need for the sphere of influence amendment is already contained in the application and the information that comes along with the annexation application. So as far as a delay, I don't see that.
And do we often have both the sphere and the annexations done at the same time? Can they be done concurrently?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
typically how they are done.
Right.
Again, with the sphere of influence and annexation of East Area 1.
Is
That
there-
happened concurrently with the annexation application. That happened after the city approved all the documentation necessary for the commission's evaluation.
Is there a benefit from a LAFCo perspective of getting them simultaneously in terms of looking at them both at the same time? I guess that's
Well,
simultaneous.
absolutely, because then you can determine a defined boundary of the sphere of influence and the annexation. Right now, that boundary is not based on, well, really anything. The basis for the current sphere of influence is not based on anything because circumstances have changed. Your policies have changed. The law has changed. Whereas determining a sphere of influence based on the demonstrated service area of the city is typically how the commission does that. And that is why it's normally associated concurrently with an annexation.
And that would also be a requirement that they add this all to their general plan too, correct?
Absolutely. And so that means that the city would have to adopt a land use plan, a circulation plan, an open space plan, a hazards plan, circulation plan. They would have to do all that is necessary to adopt a general plan for this area. And that will take an environmental impact report. It will be odd if they do it just for Adams Canyon and not Fagan Canyon. That leaves thousands of acres in the sphere without a general plan. And apparently there's no effort at all in the terms of Fagan Canyon to plan for that now.
And do you know, I didn't see it in the report, is this all part of the severe high fire hazard zone of the state of California?
My understanding is it is. Yes.
Because I know that there's emphasis now to try to avoid encroaching into those areas. So a lot has happened, since this was originally approved, and the sustained drought is one of those things that has also occurred. And the concept of being able to bring in water for that much new development in a remote area is something that will be a feat, I think.
Right. And I can't touch on the curb issue. The voters of Santa Paula that adopted the curb, that placed restrictions on the city. The curb applies only to what the city can and can't do. It doesn't apply to LAFCo. Mm-hmm. And LAFCo does have a policy that says it will acknowledge the existence of curbs and it will base a sphere of influence either on the curb or in an area less than the curb. So the commission has not acknowledged that the curbs necessarily result in all of the written determinations that the commission has to establish a sphere. That's just where the voters said the city can't go beyond, that they can't do something outside of that curb. Again, if the commission were to base solely its decisions on the curb, it would not be actually functioning as it should. It would be deferring its authority to the voters. Mm-hmm. And I would recommend against that. And that's not to say it cannot be a consideration of your commission in establishing a sphere, but you still have to make all of those written determinations and consistency with the policies that I talked about, regardless of where the sphere is.
Yeah, and
the curb is.
Having gathered thousands of signatures and helped write some of the initiatives and talked to the people signing, specifically telling them this doesn't affect LAFCo, because it can't affect LAFCO, because LAFCO is really a state entity, and city voters can't tell the state what to do. Yes,
it's
go
okay.
for it.
So when the application is filed, an environmental document is done and reviewed, and conditions placed on the project, and the council approves it, and it comes to LAFCO, if that application indicated any change in the sphere, LAFCO could change it at that time during the annexation process. In other words, with the development of the environmental document, it could point out that the sphere should be changed, that boundaries could be adjusted as part of the action that LAFCO would take ultimately in the annexation. I mean, the environmental document's going to give the data that's necessary to determine the boundaries of where the growth should occur.
Right. And if that's the anticipation of the commission, then it's kind of a default admission that the current sphere of influence does not reflect the probable boundaries and service area of the city. If the anticipation is that it's going to be pulled back to align with the future development, then...
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is LAFCo ultimately has the responsibility for annexing this property to the city and creating that boundary based on the information provided. And
Right.
the environmental document and the applications will provide that information to make that decision.
That's correct. And the recommendation today is based on the curb as it exists, or the sphere as it exists today.
I mean,
I'm not trying to
as a
anticipate.
property owner, having the sphere in place is just an indication, because it was approved by the voters, that allows them to go forward. Without that vote, it would be, I think, a different opinion. But since it was voted on, and since LAFCo is going to have all the information ultimately, and the city will be able to use that information to create their general plan, I think we're starting to see the beginning of the process that is real. And I guess I was a little disappointed that this didn't get out or didn't get to the city council or was able to be discussed at the city council. And in the future, if we have this, if we could sort of have that to whatever council in advance so that they can comment, since they are responsible for their city.
Okay. Any other questions for Kai? If not, we'll go. Yes.
You have a question? Thank you. This is here today because of a timing situation. What would be the possibilities of just continuing it to see? I don't know what's required, if you could advise us on that.
Well, you are required to review
Okay.
The sphere of influence. You're not required to update it. If you determine that it makes sense to keep it where it is, then you can review and make no updates to it.
We're required to review, but do we have a timeline when we have to make a decision, keep it the same, change it, withdraw, whatever?
Right, every 5 years, and the 5 years was in 2017. It
So
was
we're-
held over for a couple of reasons. So the commission does need to at least review the sphere and make a determination on whether an update is necessary or not.
So we couldn't postpone the decision? Or
That's what
Mr.
happened
Penrod
last time, right? Last
is
time.
saying, yeah, I recall.
The board split and nothing happened.
Right, yeah, the board split, there was no determination made in 2012. Then in 2013, under assurances from the city that it would have this area planned, the commission voted to leave it alone and revisit it as we are now.
And we were promised by the city at the time that they were going to have it updated and ready to go. And we gave them that opportunity to give them that additional time.
That's what the city informed the commission was going to happen.
At that time.
But we could, based on new information, take the same action that was previously taken, putting it back in the city's hands and leaving the sphere. That is an action on the sphere line.
It's actually the alternative action item here for the commission to review and make no changes.
And there's a reason, I think, why nothing has happened. And it's very clear, to me, why nothing has happened and why nothing's going to happen in any time soon. It's because I really think of this as a wish with no backing whatsoever in terms of being able to meet any of the requirements. And the whole point of LAFCo, and I guess I've gone into closing arguments, but the whole point of LAFCO and what we're doing here talks about orderly growth and smart growth. Right. And you just realize, just at our last item 11, right, we're talking about a half acre that we're taking out of a city, because that was the responsible thing to do. And here we're talking about close to 9,000 acres for a development that is really, I just see as a wish at this point. And,
And I just want to show, I have a lot of respect for Mike Penrod, because I worked with Mike and Lisa, this is going over and over and over again, and Santa Paula says we're going to do it, they don't have any money, and I respect Santa Paula for that. I have relatives who live there, and I think they need that. But this is, I think it can come back. You know, if we approve staff's recommendation, they can always come back, you know, and bring that item back as another step, Mike, you know, and Lisa, that you might have to bring. But we were told several years ago that they promised, the city council was here, they promised give us an opportunity, we're going to update it, and nothing's happened. So, and we have to follow LAFCo rules too. We have a policy here too.
Well, and I think the whole reason why LAFCo is here, it is, I think about how much LAFCO does get involved in projects and how nebulous this is. Thinking about it, was it East Area 1 where it was looked at, I think that was the one, where LAFCO actually brought forward requirements to really dig into the flood control, see that there is flood control, that there were funding for flood control. I was really getting into the details of that. And you just look at, that was just one aspect of one type of utility, and to the level of detail that was necessary. And the broadness of this is, I think, the most troubling part. The idea of, you know, miles and miles of roads to get to a development that will be so far off that, and the idea of any of the utilities that they would have at a time of extreme drought, you know, so it's just, there's just so many things that need to be put in place for this. I don't see this coming forward, you know, anytime soon.
And the other concern too, Madam Chair, is a fire, you know. We've experienced a major fire that we've not experienced in all of our history. That's a major concern, to have 2,100 homes up in those hills, you know. Anyway, that's something that I'm sure that maybe Mike and Lisa and those folks and probably have to work on too. I mean, that to me is a major concern that we did not have before.
And that optimism that we'll have water, you know, I mean, that's a lovely thought.
Let me just make a comment. We're casting judgment on fire and water and sewer and transportation without having a document that has studied all of it. And until we have an environmental document and have the information, then I don't think we can make a decision based on the potential of a problem with fire, or a potential of a problem with water, or a potential of a problem with sewer, because we don't have the actual information. And that's what the process is all about, is submitting an application and providing that roadway to get how all these things are going to happen. So,
but we're not closing the door. They can come back with that, all that information.
well, I know they can, but it's another step that they have to take, and they need some. I mean, I think the city council, I can't speak for them, but they have not taken action to change this or requested that we change it. The voters approved it, and we are here to judge when the project comes back if all of those services were adequately addressed, and if those services can be addressed. We don't have that information right now.
And I think you have nailed it. And it is a philosophical difference. One is we don't have the information, so we shouldn't change it. And the other one is we don't have information saying this is adequate, so we should change it. So that's exactly, I think you've got it right there.
So,
and it is
I'd rather wait and see the information before I make any change.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve staff's recommendation A, B, and C. You know, and I'm sure that Mr. Penrod and Lisa will come back with a project later on. We can always, you know, go that step. But at this time, I know we gave Santa Paula a chance the last time. They promised we were going to come over, and I know that James is here, you know. But we, to me, that's my recommendation, that or a motion to approve staff recommendation A, B, and C.
I'll second that, but I have some comments.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I know Commissioner Ross has comments. I feel for Santa Paula. I'm pretty familiar with what Santa Paula is going through. And I do agree we need more housing. But I think we have to do our job as commissioners for LAFCo and follow the law. And I am concerned, especially because of this project, which sounds very beautiful in an ideal world, where we didn't face in our area tremendous challenges with water, fire. Housing, we do need housing very much, but we have to do our job as commissioners here. And I wish the developers in the city of Santa Paula, great fortune in getting this done. But right now, it's been put off too long, and we are neglecting our jobs. As a commissioner, I might feel differently if I was a Santa Paula City Council person. I am an Oxnard City Council person, and I know the challenges, but I'm sitting here as a commissioner of LAFCo, and we are not doing our job if we do not take this action. It's been put off too long. So I wish, I just hope for Santa Paula and all the great things that beautiful little city can accomplish, but we're not there yet to change things. So.
And I'm going to can add a little bit more to that. I am here, I'm a supervisor at County Ventura, and I go back to LAFCo 101. Today I'm wearing my LAFCO hat, not my supervisorial hat, and so forth. And I think Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez mentioned it well. I love Santa Paula. I have relatives there. I want to see Santa Paula really become that beautiful city that it is. However, at this time, I'm sure that Mr. Penrod and Lisa will come back with hopefully a good project and reinstate the sphere of influence. And anyway, that's it.
Commissioner Ross?
Yeah, I do want to reemphasize, this came back to us in 2015, and at the time I recognized that this was an issue that LAFCo needed to act on because, and sure enough, it happened exactly as I envisioned it. We didn't take an action. The property changed hands, and the new owner purchased the property, I'm assuming, considering the fact that the sphere was part of the situation and valued the property as such. So our neglect of not doing our job has cost somebody potential losses, not to say that they're not going to keep moving forward, and I do hope you do. We all recognize we need more houses in Ventura County, and the vision that's being cast, it does sound beautiful, and I would encourage you to full steam ahead on this. I do recognize, though, looking at the map, this is a sore thumb, and I don't see anywhere else in the county where this is the case, and our staff has identified that exact fact that there's no other city that has quite this large space that has not been planned for properly, and we are here to make sure that development is planned, orderly, and efficient. So I will be voting to remove this for the time, but recognizing that we are here and ready to listen for whatever comes forward in the near future.
And Commissioner Parvin, did you have comments?
Just a quick comment. I was here when Santa Paula City Council expressed that they would be ready and we would have those documents before this date. And they have made a number of promises, and I feel bad that they weren't able to come through because it's actually affecting the potential developers' angst, I think, right now. But they have been distracted quite a bit. But they did promise that they had put the money in their budget so that they would have it done, and it's not done. And I'm wearing my LAFCO hat, I have to concur that we have certain policies we must follow, and I think we have been extremely patient waiting for something to come forward, and that hasn't taken place. So I'm supporting the motion.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, can we have a roll call on the motion?
Commissioner Freeman?
No.
Commissioner Parvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Waters?
No.
Commissioner Zaragoza?
Yes.
Chair Parks?
Yes. So that does pass, and I think we all have fond thoughts for Santa Paula, just looking at doing this orderly. That's it. And look forward to you coming back.
And I'm sure that Mike's going to bring us a good project.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll go to our item 13, cancellation of the March 21st LAFCo meeting. Go ahead, jump on that button. Got a motion? Got a motion. Got a second. All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Okay, that person who objects can come to the meeting. All right, that meeting then is canceled. We have informational items.
Yeah, that's just an application we've received from the city of Camarillo. We were going to bring that to the commission next month, but we did confirm with them that they can delay it until April. So.
Okay, and that our next meeting is April 18th. If there's no other, yes, Commissioner Freeman.
I know the Board of Supervisors voted on the annexation of the fire district to the city of Santa Paula. Did I read that correctly in the paper?
Not the Board of Supervisors.
If LAFCo.
LAFCo.
Well,
did.
I know we did, but I
Yes.
thought there was an action.
It has not come to the Board of
Okay.
Supervisors yet.
So has there been a draft agreement reached yet, or has that gone to the city council, or where is that right now?
I've been updated by both the Fire Protection District staff and city staff that there are about 2 issues that they are still discussing, and that they plan to have it adopted within the next couple of weeks, probably by about halfway through the protest period. And the protest period began on Sunday.
So do you think it will be at city council in time before LAFCo sends out the protest vote?
The protest period started on Sunday. We had to wait the 30 days
Right.
for reconsideration, and we published notice on Sunday, and that began the 60 days. So the district and the city have assured me that they will have that MOA adopted by about halfway through the 60-day protest period.
So the voters, the people of Santa Paula will have that opportunity to know what's before them.
Right, yes.
And I know that is really important, and that was a major consideration of yours. And I've also heard that we need to encourage the attorneys that are involved to process this so it can get out to the public in a timely fashion.
Madam Chair, one final item. I just want to thank staff again, for an excellent job today. Excellent presentation.
You're welcome.
And I hope to see you at BCTC.
Okay, and we also have a Commissioner Ross.
Yeah, real quick. Last night I did attend a Fillmore Piru Ground Sustainability Agency meeting, a groundwater sustainability agency meeting, and they were talking about boundaries and different areas for service and what's considered this basin versus another. We're going to be seeing a lot more of those coming forward as the sustainability agencies are forming and determining their boundaries. Does LAFCo play a part in that? My LAFCo alarm was going off last night, seeing boundaries and maps.
It potentially. Some of these jurisdictions, if they want to become an agency that oversees the groundwater, they want to include the basin within its district boundaries. I am not up to speed enough on those. It hasn't been an issue here in Ventura County.
Not yet,
And it hasn't resulted in any annexations, but I know that's happened to other areas in the state. Okay. So I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, something maybe down the pipeline. Okay, thank you.
If there aren't any other questions.
One last thing. I plan to attend the celebration Moore Park for your Steve Cuney's retirement, who's the longest serving, maybe, city manager. So I'm very jealous and hope to be there.
Well, I'm glad you're coming. It's great.
And you have a new city manager. Congratulations. Yeah. Congratulations on that, too.
With that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.